Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, we'll be writing our first Java program. So let's begin. Now, first of all, we'll have to create a Java project. And for doing that, go to File, select New, Java Project. Okay, and we'll have to provide some name for it. So I'm giving the name as Test. Okay, and click on Finish. So we have our project ready. Now, inside this, we'll have to create a class file. So for doing that, just right click on the project, select new class. Okay, and again, we'll have to provide some name for it. So I'm giving the name as Hello World. And apart from this, we are going to need this thing in our program. So I'm just checking this checkbox. Okay, and then click on finish. So we have our setup ready. Okay, now before starting, I'll just tell you what this is, guys. So this is the main method or the main function, and this marks the start of our program execution. So whenever we run our Java application, this method or this function will get executed first. Now again, don't worry about the terms method or function right now. So for now, just consider it as some block of code which has a name. So this block of code with the name main will get executed first when we run our program. So let's begin. And also you will find that in almost all my programs, I've written the code inside this main block of code. Okay, so let's begin. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll just print something on the screen. And for doing that, we have a statement in Java called as system.out.println. So I say system.out.println. Okay, so this is the statement which we will be using for printing anything on the screen. So whatever you give it to this method or this statement, it will print it on the screen. Let's say, for example, if we want to print some text, then we'll have to use double quotes, and inside the double quotes you specify any string which you want to print. So let's say hello world. Okay, so this code will just print hello world onto the screen or the console. So let's run this. And yes, you can see hello world is printed on the screen. Now, I'm just going to add two more statements over here. And guys, for system.out.println, Eclipse has a shortcut which says sysout, and then you press Control space. So it will automatically generate the statement for you. Now, I'm going to write two more statements like this, entering main, and similarly over here, sysout, control space, leaving main. Now what I've done is I've just created two marker statements. Now what a marker statement means, it marks the start and end of a particular block of code. Now again, this is not compulsory, but it is a good programming practice if we use this because it becomes easier for us to debug the program when the program is really complex. So this is not mandatory, but yes, it is recommended to use this type of style. And I've used this in some of my projects, and yeah, I'll be using this in some of my projects which I'm going to teach you. Okay. So that's it. Now let's run this program again and see if it works fine. And yes, as you can see, the first statement which gets displayed is entering main. Then we have our hello world statement, and then again leaving main. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you about variables. So a variable is a very generic term nowadays. It is not a term which is specific only to Java. It is a common term in programming. So what is a variable exactly? Now, a variable in any programming language is a piece of memory or part of memory that is used to store data. It is like a container to hold data values in our program. So we can't store our data anyhow in memory. We need a variable to store data. So this is the main purpose of a variable, that is storing data. Now, a variable has a data type which indicates the type of data it can hold. So whenever we consider a variable, there are two parts in its declaration. One is the name of the variable and the other is the data type. Let's say, for example, if we want to declare a variable which should hold only integer values. So the syntax is as follows: int x. So this is the way we declare a simple variable in Java. Okay, so the first part, int, that is the data type, which indicates the type of data that this variable can hold, and this is the name of the variable. So this variable can hold only integer values. Again, there will be exceptions to this, but at this moment we need not worry about them. So for now, you just have to keep one thing in mind: any variable declaration has two parts. One is the data type and the other is the name of the variable. Now, depending on how the data is stored internally in the memory, variable can be divided into two categories. One is the primitive type and the other is a reference type. So this declaration which I have declared is a primitive type, and a reference type would be something like this. Now at this moment you need not worry about them, because I'm going to explain about them in detail in my next tutorial. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching and see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. In the previous tutorial I told you about variables, then how they are declared and the types of variables. In this tutorial I'm going to tell you about the types of variables in detail. Now, as I said, depending on how the data is internally stored in memory, the variables can be divided into two types. One is a primitive type and the other is a reference type. Now, the reference types are also called as object types. So don't get confused because they are one and the same. So now let's begin. First of all, I'll have to explain how to assign a value to a variable, because in the previous tutorial we have just declared a variable. We didn't assign any value to it. So now we'll see how to assign a value to a variable. Now let us consider the example which we took in the previous tutorial. In the previous tutorial we have declared a variable x as follows. So this is the way we declare a variable. Now to assign a value to it, we have to write something like this. So it's quite simple. So the value 10 will be loaded into the variable x. So whatever is on the right hand side will be loaded into the variable on the left hand side. So it is as simple as that. Now similarly, we can assign the value to a reference type or an object type. Let's say string str equal to double quotes ABC. Now since it is a string, we have to use double quotes for assigning the value. Now as you can see, the method of assigning a value to a variable is same for both primitive type and reference type. We have a common assignment operator in between. And this is, by the way, it's called the assignment operator. It is not equal to, it is called assignment operator. Okay, so this is the way we assign a value to a variable. Now what is the difference between primitive types and reference types? Now the difference is observed on how the data is internally stored in the memory. Now in the first case, that is in the case of primitive types, this value 10 is actually stored in the variable x. So the variable x actually holds the value 10. But in the case of reference type or object type, the variable str, in this case the variable str contains the memory address of the string object to which it is pointing. So it does not directly hold the value. Okay, so it points to the actual object. So it is like a reference to the actual object. Okay, so this is the difference between primitive type and reference type. So the primitive type actually holds the data, whereas the reference type contains the memory address of the object to which it is pointing. So I think like this might be confusing for some of you at this stage, but don't worry. Because I've covered these concepts of classes and objects in my object-oriented programming section of the course. So you can be clear about it when you reach that section. So don't worry about it. That's it for now. Thank you for watching and see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'll just show you some of the commonly used data types in Java. Okay, so I'll start off with int. So I'll declare a variable int over here and I'll assign it some value. Now this int data type can hold any integer value. Okay, so it can be a positive value, it can be a negative value, but it has to be an integer, right? So I can even add or assign negative values to it, but it has to be an integer. Now again, there is some range for it, but right now we are not concerned about it. Okay, so just remember that int data type is used for storing integer values. Then we have something called as double. Okay, so double stores decimal type values. For example, I can store something like 25.7. So any decimal type values, if we want to store, we can use the double data type, right? Now, next is the char. So this char data type is used to store single characters. Okay, so I can store any character which I want. Let's say C or even star, anything. It is also a character. So I can store any character value into it, right? Now, then I have something called as Boolean. Now this Boolean data type, it can store only two values. Okay, so it has only two values, that is either true or false. So for now I'm assigning it a true value. Okay, so these are the commonly used primitive types in Java. Now I'll just declare one more type, and which is a reference type. And again, this string is very commonly used data type in Java, and that is the reason why I have used it. So string data type is used for declaring any string type of data. Okay, so it can take multiple characters at a time, right? So this is the string data type. So this string is reference type. Okay, just remember that these all are primitive types and this is a reference type. Okay, so guys, these are the commonly used data types in Java. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll give you an overview of the arithmetic operators in Java. Now there are 5 arithmetic operators in Java, that is addition operator, subtraction operator, multiplication operator, division operator, and finally the remainder operator. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just go on explaining these operators one by one. So for doing that I'll use two variables, int a is equal to 10, int b is equal to 20. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just go on using the different operators with these variables and display the result on the screen. So I'll just start with the addition operator. Sys out, okay, a plus b. So this is the addition operator and it should give us the sum of these two numbers. So that is 10 plus 20, which is equal to 30. So let's run this. Yes, we got the correct output. Now the next operator is the subtraction operator. So this will give us the difference between the two numbers, that is 10 minus 20, which is equal to minus 10. So let's run this. Yes, we got the correct output. Now the next one is the multiplication operator. Okay, now this operator should give us the product of the two numbers, that is 10 into 20, which is equal to 200. So let's run it, and yes, it is correct. And moving on, the next operator is the division operator. So for division, what I'll do is I'll divide b by a because I think it will give us the concrete output. So b divided by a is equal to 20 divided by 10, which is equal to 2. Okay, and yes, the output is correct. And now finally we have a remainder operator. Now a remainder operator is a bit different. So what it does is, suppose if I say 10 remainder 20, by the way, this is also called as the modulo operator. So if I say 10 modulo 20, what it will do is it will return the remainder of the division of 10 and 20. So it will divide 10 by 20 and it will return the remainder of the 2. Okay, so I think by looking at this, we should get 10 as the remainder. So let's run this. And yes, if you divide 10 by 20, you will get 10 as the remainder. So that was the remainder operator or the modulo operator. Now, again, you can use these operators in long expressions. Let's say, for example, I can say something like a plus b multiplied by a minus b. So we can create any such expressions by using these operators. Okay, so let's run this. Yeah, this is the output. Okay, now there's one more point which I would like to make. It is regarding the addition operator. Okay, so let's display it again, a plus b. So now there's a confusion regarding this. This addition operator, it is sometimes used as a concatenation operator. Okay, so for example, if I say something like this, equal to plus a plus b. So in this case, this operator is acting as a concatenation operator. Okay, and in this case, it is acting as an addition operator. So whenever a plus operator is used in combination with a string, it acts as a concatenation operator, and whenever it is used with numeric values, it acts as an addition operator. So just remember this point. These two operators are not the same, they are different. Okay, so one is a concatenation operator and the other one is a addition operator. So that's it. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll be covering the relational operators and equality operators in Java. So let's begin. Now again, for explaining them, I'll be using two variables, and I'll just go on using the different operators with these variables. Okay, so let's start. Now, okay, there are four relational operators: less than equal to, greater than, and greater than equal to. So I'll start with the first one. Now when I say a less than b, so this is our first relational operator, and what it will do is it will just compare a and b and see if the value of a is less than b. Now in this case, a is 7 and b is 9, so a is less than 7. So the value of this expression should be evaluated to true. Let's run this, and yes, the answer which we get is true. Now the next operator is less than equal to. Now even in this case, the value should be evaluated to true. Let's run it, and yes, it is true. Now the next operator is greater than. Now in this case, a is not greater than b because a is 7 and b is 9. So this should return false. Let's run this. Yes, it has returned false. Now again, the next operator is greater than equal to. Even this should return false. Okay, and yes, after running, we get the correct output. Okay, so these four were the relational operators, and now I'm going to explain you the equality operator. Now the equality operator is represented by a double equal to, and what it does is it just checks the two values for equality. So it will check if the two values are equal. And remember, it is not a single equal to, because if it is a single equal to, then it means it is an assignment operator. But in this case, it is a double equal to, which means it is a equality operator. Okay, so this should return false because a is not equal to 9. So let's run this. Yes, it is false. And we have one more operator over here, which is called not equal to, and it will just check if a is not equal to b. And in this case, yes, a is not equal to b, so it should return true. Let's run this, and yes, the output is true. So these were the equality operators. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll be covering the logical operators in Java. Now first of all, there are three logical operators in Java: the AND operator, the OR operator, and the NOT operator. So I'll explain you these operators one by one, and again I'll use the same method which we used in the previous tutorials for explaining these operators. Okay, yes. Now just a quick revision to what we did in the previous tutorial. So we did something like this, and here this is the relational operator, and we are just comparing these two variables. Now the value of this expression will either be evaluated to true or false. Now in this case, by looking at the values, I think this will be evaluated to true because 10 is less than 20. So let's just run this, and yes, the value is true. Now this is just one expression. Now there may be situations where I'll have to compare the values of multiple expressions. So what I'm saying is, let's say I have one more expression over here. Okay, let's say a is equal to 10. Okay, and I want to compare the values of both these expressions. So we have something called as a AND operator over here. Okay, now this is the AND operator. So it is represented by a double ampersand. Now what this AND operator says that if this expression is evaluated to true, and if this expression is evaluated to true, then only the value of this entire expression will be evaluated to true. Okay, so if this expression is true and if this expression is true, then only the value of this entire expression will be true. And if any one of these expressions is false, then the value of this entire expression will be evaluated to false. Okay, so in this case, the first expression is true, no doubt about it, and the second expression is also true. So the value of this entire expression should be true. So let's run this. Yes, it is true. Now suppose I change the value over here to 9. Okay, in this case, the first expression is true, but the second expression is false. So the value of this entire expression will be false. So let's run this. Yes. So that is the meaning of AND operator. Now again, I'm just comparing two expressions. I can anytime write more expressions over here. Okay, like this. So it can go on and on. Okay, the only rule we have to follow over here is, or we have to remember over here is, if any of the expressions is false, the value of the entire expression will be false, and this is the AND operator. Now similarly, we have another operator called as the OR operator. So I'll just change the operator over here. Yes, so this is the OR operator. Now in this case, what the OR operator says is, if the value of this expression is true, or if the value of this expression is true, then the value of this entire expression will be true. So there is a OR in between. So we need not have both the expressions true. Okay, so in this case, this is true, but this is false, but still we'll get the answer as true. Let's run this. Yes. Okay, so I'll repeat it one more time. What the OR operator says is, if this expression is true, or if this expression is true, then the value of this entire expression will be true. So that is how an OR operator works. And again, similarly, I can write as many OR operators and as many expressions as I want, like this. Okay, so I just completed AND operator and OR operator. Now the last one is the NOT operator. Now what the NOT operator says is, it just gives us the negation of a particular Boolean value. Let's say, for example, if the value of a Boolean variable is true, then the negation of true is false. Okay, so when I say a less than b, in this case, the value of this expression will be true. Okay, so let's run this one more time. Yeah, it is true. But when I say not, okay, and by the way, not is represented by this exclamation symbol. Now, when I say not a less than b, this means that it will give me the negation of this value, and as the value over here will be true, the negation of true is false. So we'll get false as the answer over here. So let's run this, and yes, we got the output as expected. So these were the three logical operators in Java. That's it for now. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll cover the if statement. Now an if statement is a conditional statement, and its syntax is something like this. So we write if, which is followed by round brackets, and inside these round brackets we specify some condition, and it is then followed by a block of code. Okay, and yeah, just one more thing over here. This is the way you comment any statement in Java. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now if this statement is true, then this code will be executed, otherwise this code will not be executed. Okay, so I'll just explain this with an example. I'll take an integer variable x and I'll assign a value 9 to it. Okay, and inside this if statement, I'll just check whether the value of x is equal to 9. So for doing that, I'll have to write x if x is equal to 9. And just observe over here, I've used the double equal to operator, because if it is a single equal to, then it means that I am assigning a value. So I want to compare the value. So that is the reason why I've used the double equal to operator. Okay. So if this statement is true, then this code will be executed. Now I'll have to write some statement over here. I'll just print something on the screen. Sys out, control space, the value is 9. Okay, so when I run this program, this expression or the statement will be evaluated to true, and as a result of it, this statement will be executed. Okay, so let's run the program. Yes, as you can see, the statement has successfully executed. Okay, now I'll just try to change the condition over here. I'll make it 8. Now when I run the program, this statement will be evaluated to false, and as a result of it, this entire part will be skipped. It won't execute it. Okay, so after coming here, it will get the evaluate the statement to false, and directly it will come outside the blocks. Okay, and when I run the program, I won't get the it won't display this statement. Okay, so let's run the program. Yeah, and as expected, it has not executed this statement. Okay, so this is the way a simple if statement works in Java, and that's it for now. In the next tutorial, I'll explain the if-else statement. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial, I'll cover the if-else statement. So let's begin by revising what we did in the previous tutorial. So this was the code which we wrote in the previous tutorial. If this condition is true, then this code will be executed. Now, if we take this construct, then if the condition is true, then we have a facility of writing the code. But if the condition is false, then we don't have any facility for writing the code. So the only way we could write it maybe probably after completing the if statement. Let's say sys out, the value is not 9. Okay, but this won't give you the desired output. Let's say if we run the program in this case, okay, so I'll run the program. So you're getting it twice, because when this is evaluated to true, this will be executed, and this will as it is get executed because it is outside the if statement. So this is the limitation of the if statement, and for that reason we have a if-else construct. Now when I use the if-else statement, I'll just have to write an else over here, which will be followed by curly braces. Okay, so I'll just shift this statement from here to here. Okay, so now it works like this. So if this statement is true, then this code will be executed. Okay, and if it is false, then this code will be executed. Okay, so that is the simple working of an if-else statement. Now let's run the program. Yeah, as you can see, since the statement is true, only this part is executed and not this part. So let's change the value to 8. Now when the statement, this expression will be evaluated, this will return false, and as a result, this statement won't get executed and it will directly go to the else part. Okay, so let's run the program. Yes, as you can see, it directly went to the else part. Okay, so that is the working of an if-else statement. And again guys, just one more point, like in this statement, in this condition part, this is just a simple expression. Like this can be really big expression, and the final output of that expression will be taken into consideration. Like we can have a long mathematical expression in the condition. Okay, so for simplicity purpose, I've just used a simple expression, but it can be really big. Okay, so that was just one point which I wanted to make. So that's it for now, and thank you for watching. See you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll explain you the nested if statement. Now before going into nested if, I just want to show you one more variation of the if-else statement. Now this is what we did in the previous tutorial. So this was the syntax of a simple if-else statement. Now the special variation which I was talking about is called else if ladder. So in that, what we can do is, if x is equal to 8, then do this statement. Else if x is equal to 9, then execute this statement. Else if x is equal to 10, do this. Okay, so this is the syntax of an else if ladder. So how it works: if x is equal to 8, then execute this. Else if x is equal to 9, then execute this. Else if x is equal to 10, then execute this. So this was the syntax. Now we'll go into the nested if statement. Now what a nested if means is, I can write an if statement inside an if statement. So let's say this is my if statement, and inside this also I can create another if statement, right? So how it will work: first it will check if this condition is true, then if yes, if it is true, then it will go inside, and then again it will make a check over here, right? So this is how it works. And again, with this if, you can also add an else condition. So this is a nested if. Okay, so we have a if, inside that we have a if, and again this can go on. You can create as many ifs as you want in this fashion. Let's say inside this if also you can create another one, something like this. So it can go on, right? So this is the syntax of a nested if statement. So thank you for watching, and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll cover the switch statement. Now the switch statement has a bit different syntax if we compare it with the previous two statements. So this is how a switch statement looks like. Now this is the switch keyword, which is followed by round brackets, and inside that we pass some value, and this is the body of the switch statement. Okay, now as you can see in the body there are different cases, okay, and each case is identified by a label. Okay, now this label can be anything. It can be an integer, it can be a character, it can be a string, it can be anything. But the only thing which you should keep in mind is, whatever data type you are using for this value, these labels should also have the same data type, or it should be values of the same data type. Okay, so that is one thing we should keep in mind. Now how does it work exactly? So when you pass a value in this switch statement, it will compare this value with the labels of the cases, and wherever it finds a match, let's say for example it finds a match over here, then it will execute the corresponding statement. Now again, this is only one statement. There can be a lot of statements over here. It can be an entire block of code. So the thing is, wherever it finds a match, it will execute the corresponding code. And let's say if we pass a value which is not present in any of the cases, okay, so if it doesn't find a match in any of the cases, then it will directly jump to the default case. Okay, so I'll explain this with an example. Let's say I take a variable option, and I assign a value to it, let's say 2, and I'm passing this variable to my switch case. Okay, now as I said, I'll have to use the same data type for my labels also, and these are going to be actual values, right? It is not a variable or something. So I'm passing actual values over here. Okay, so now, okay, it compiled well. Now how it will work exactly? So I'm passing the value as option, which is having the value as 2. Okay, now first it will compare with case 1. Okay, now since 1 and 2 do not match, this statement will not be executed. Then it will go to the next case. Now here it finds a match because 2 and 2 are same. So it should execute this code. And once it finds a match, it will skip the rest of the statements. Okay, so the only thing which should get displayed on the screen is this. Okay, yeah, of course these two statements will anyway get displayed. So let's run the program. Yes, and we get the output as expected. Now let's try to pass some value which is not present in any of the cases. Let's say 5. So in this case it should directly jump to the default case. Okay, now let's run the program. and yes, it has directly jumped to the default case. Okay, so this is the way a simple switch case works. So thank you for watching and see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll be doing the while loop. Now let us consider this statement. Okay, now if I run this program, this statement will be displayed only once. So let's run the program, and yes, as you can see, the statement is displayed only once. Now suppose if I want to display the same statement 5 times, what do? I'll probably copy this statement and paste it 4 more times. Okay, and then run the code. Okay, and as you can see, it is displayed 5 times. But this does not look like a good programming practice. And in programming, you should always keep in mind that if you're doing any particular thing again and again, or if you're doing it repeatedly, then it is usually not a good way of programming. So you should always find out ways to optimize that code. Okay, so this does not look like a good code. Okay, so for solving this issue, we have something called as loops. And in this tutorial, I'll be doing the while loop. So a while loop looks something like this. Okay, so we have a while keyword which is followed by round brackets, and inside this round bracket we pass some condition. So as long as this condition is true, the code over here will be executed. Okay, so I'll explain this with an example. So I'll declare a variable I and I'll initialize it with 1. Okay, now inside this I'll pass some condition. So while I is less than equal to 5. Okay, while I is less than equal to 5, execute this code. So I'll have to write some code over here. So I'll just shift this statement from here to this while statement. Okay, now what will happen is, first time the value of I will be 1, and as you can see, I is less than equal to 5. So this will be evaluated to true. So it will go inside and execute this code. Okay, so after this I'll have to add an increment operator. So I should be incremented over here. Okay, yes, so what will happen, first time it comes, it is less than equal to 5, so it will go inside and it will be incremented. So second time it will become 2, and again it is satisfying this condition, it will go inside and execute this code, and it will keep on doing this till the time I is less than or equal to 5. The moment I becomes greater than 5, the loop will break and it will come out. Okay, so this is the way it should work, and this program should give us the same output which we got last time. Okay, so let's run the program, and yes, you can see that it has displayed hello world 5 times. Okay, so this is the way a simple while loop works. In the next tutorial, I'll be doing some other looping statement. So thank you for now, and see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll be doing the do while loop. In the last tutorial we saw the while loop, and the do while loop is a bit different. So the syntax of a do while loop is as follows. So we have do, then it is followed by a block of code, and then we have while. Okay, and inside this we specify some condition. So it works like this. So do this block of code while this condition is true. Okay, so I'll explain this with an example. Now I'll again consider a variable I, and I'll initialize it with 0. Okay, and again inside this I'll write some statement. Let's say sysout hello world. Okay, and hello world, I'll just concatenate it with the variable I. Okay, so do this statement while I is less than or equal to 5. I'll initialize it with 1. Okay, yes, so it will work like this. Do this statement while I is less than equal to true. So do this or execute this block of code while this condition is true. And the first time what happens is this statement will always be executed. So that is the slight difference between the while loop and a do while loop. In case of a do while loop, once the statements are always executed. Okay, so the do loop is executed at least once, whereas it is not necessary in case of while loop. If the first time the condition fails, then the while loop won't be executed at all. But in this case, the do while loop will be executed at least once. Okay, so if we have a requirement where we want to execute the loop at least once, then we should go for a do while loop. Okay, so let's run this program. Okay, and as you can see, we haven't incremented it. So guys, this is a very important observation. You can see it went in infinite loop, and the reason behind that is we haven't incremented the value of I. So every time it was 1, and that's why it was satisfying this condition. So we should not forget to increment the value of I. And now when I run the code, it is displayed 5 times. Okay, so this was the do while loop, and in the next tutorial I'll be doing some other looping statement. Okay, so that's it for now, and see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll be covering the for loop. Now the for loop is a very commonly used loop in programming, so most of the times you will end up using this loop only. Now the for loop looks something like this. Okay, so we have a for keyword which is followed by round brackets, and inside this we write some code. Now this section is divided into 3 parts separated by semicolon. The first part is the initialization part, where we initialize our variables. The second part is the condition, where we specify the looping condition. And the last part is the increment or decrement expression. Okay, so I'll explain this with an example. In the first part, let me initialize a variable I. So I'm initializing a variable I to 1. Okay, and in the second section, I'll specify the looping condition. Let I less than equal to 5. So this condition is my looping condition, that is till what time I want to execute my loop, or for how long, or for how many times I want to execute my loop. So that condition I've specified over here, and in the last section I'll just increment the value of I. Okay, so our construct is ready, and inside this I'll just have to write some statement. So sys out control space hello world, and I'll just concatenate the value of I over here. So our code is ready. Now I'll just explain you how this works. Now the first time this is executed, the value of I will be initialized to 1. Then it will be checked or compared with 5. If it is less than equal to 5, then it will come inside and execute the code over here. After that, it will be incremented. Then again it will be compared. Now after incrementing, the value of I will be 2. Now again 2 is less than or equal to 5, so it is satisfied the condition. Then again it will come inside. After executing, again it will be incremented. Then it will be checked. So this process will go on executing till the time I is less than or equal to 5. The moment I becomes greater than 5, the loop will break and it will come out. So remember one thing, the value of I will be initialized only once. Okay, so let's run the program and check if we get the correct output. And yes, as you can see, the program has successfully executed. Now, one more important point regarding the for loop is when should we prefer a for loop? Now, we should prefer a for loop when we know beforehand how many times we want to loop. Whereas if you consider previous 2 statements, whether it be a while or do while loop, we need not necessarily know how many times we want to loop. It will go on looping as long as the condition is true. But in this case, we have to know beforehand how many times we want to loop our code. So that is a very important point regarding the for loop. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll be explaining you methods. Now before I begin, I just want to make one thing clear. The term method and function is one and the same. The only thing is that in Java we prefer to call or we prefer to use the term method, but the method and function is one and the same. So let's begin. Now, in this code, you can see these three lines. There is line 1, line 2, and line 3. And you can see that these three lines are repeated thrice in the code. So we have these three lines, then we have some other lines of code, then again these three lines, then again some other lines of code, and then again these three lines. And if you remember, I've said that if in programming, if you're doing any particular thing again and again or repeatedly, then it is probably not a good programming practice. So we should find some optimized solution for this. And yes, we have a solution for it, and it is called a method. Now, first of all, how do we write a method? Now, a method has a return type. Now, if a method does not want to return anything, then the return type should be void. So in this case, I'm not returning anything. My method will not return anything, and that is the reason why I've used void as my return type. And after that, we have the method name. Now I'm giving the name as m1. It is then followed by the parameter list, and then finally we have the method body. Okay, so this is the simple way or the proper syntax of a simple method. So the return type, the method name, and the parameter list, and then the body. So what I'll do is I'll just shift these three lines of code which are repeatedly used, and I'll paste them in this method. Okay, so I'll remove them from here and also from here. Now what I'll do is, now the beauty of method is that we can call a method by its name, and it will execute whatever is there inside its body. So I'll just use the method name and call the method over here, and again over here, and also over here. Okay, so now yes, and there would be an error over here because I have not used static keyword for this method. And for now, you just ignore this part, and remember, it is not required to use static everywhere. So for now, just ignore this part because I've covered this in the object-oriented section of the course. So for now, you just focus on this part. Okay, so now what will happen is you will get the output exactly what you expected. So I'll just run the program to check if it is right. And yes, as you can see, the three lines of code are executed, and then some other lines of code, and then again the three lines, and yes, the output is perfect. So this is the beauty of a method. So we can separate the code which is repeating into a separate block of code. So a method is ultimately a block of code or a set of statements. So that's it for now, and thank you for watching. See you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to pass parameters to a method. So I'll be creating two methods, one is for addition and the other one is for subtraction. So both these methods will take two integer values as parameters and display their addition and subtraction respectively. So I'll just start off by writing the first method. So static void add. And I'll have to pass the parameters to this method. So int a comma int b. Okay, and now again ignore this static part because it is not important at this moment. Okay, so inside this method I'll have to print their addition. So sysout control space addition is equal to the concatenation operator and a plus b. So similarly, I'll create a method for subtraction. Okay, so I'll just change the name. Subtract, and subtraction is equal to a minus b. So I'm done with writing the methods, but these methods won't get executed unless I call them. So I'll have to make a call to these methods. So for calling them, I'll have to write their name, add, and also I'll have to pass the parameters. Let's say I pass the parameter as 30, 10. Okay. Now what will happen is this 30 will be loaded in A and this 10 will be loaded in B, and we'll get the output as 30 plus 10, which is equal to 40. So similarly, I'll call the subtract method, and again I'm passing the parameters as 30 comma 10. So again here 30 will be loaded in A, 10 will be loaded in B, and I'll get the output as 30 minus 10, which is equal to 20. So let's check if we get the correct output. And yes, we get the output as expected. So that is the way we pass parameters to a method. And again guys, this parameter list, it can be really long. In this example, for simplicity purpose, I've just used 2 parameters. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching and see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to return a value from a method. Now, let us consider a previous example. And in this example, what we did was we created 2 methods, add and subtract, and both these methods were taking 2 integer parameters. And inside the method, they were just performing some operation and displaying it on the screen. But in this case, our methods were not returning any value. And because of that, the return type of the method was void. Now, in this tutorial, what I'm going to do is I just make these methods return some value. So first I'll remove these statements. Okay. And I've decided that I'll make these methods return an integer value. Okay. So in this case, this method will return the addition of A and B. And in this case, the method will return the subtraction of A and B. So first of all, I'll have to change the return type of the method. Okay. So I'll just make it int. And why do we have to do this? Because our method is actually going to return an int value, and that is the reason why I've changed the return type to int. Now here the compiler will show error because we are saying that our method returns an int value, but in reality we are not returning anything. So we'll have to return something over here. Okay, so what I would do is I'll just create a variable add, and I'll load it with the addition of A and B. And I'll return this variable add. Okay, so now the error should go. Yes. And I'll do the similar thing for subtraction. So I'll create a variable sub, and I'll load it with the subtraction of A and B, and I'll just return this variable. Okay, so we are done with writing our methods. Now inside the main method, what I would do is I'll just capture the value which these methods are returning in a separate variable. So let's say int addition is equal to add 30 comma 10. So in this case, what will happen is this method add will get executed, and at the end it will return the addition of A and B, and that value which it returns, we'll capture it in a variable. And similarly, I'll do it for subtraction. Okay, so yes, so the subtract method will execute, and the value which it returns, we'll capture it in a variable. Now what I would do is I'll just print the values which we captured just now to check if we are right. So sys out addition is equal to plus addition. Okay, and similarly for subtraction, subtraction is equal to concatenation operator subtraction variable. Okay, so we are done with writing the code. Now let's just run this program to check if everything works fine. And yes, as you can see, we got the output as expected. Now there is a shortcut over here. We don't even have to create a variable and then return that variable. So there is a shortcut over here, and the shortcut is I'll just remove this statement and directly return A plus B. Okay, and similarly for subtraction, I'll directly return the subtraction expression. Okay, so in this case, what will happen is this expression will be evaluated and the result will be returned. So let's just test this program and check if we get the same output. And yes, as you can see, we got the same output which we got last time. So this is the way we return a value from a method in Java. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching and see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll be explaining arrays. Now, so far we've seen variables which can hold only a single value at a time. That is, when I say int x is equal to 10, this means that this variable x can hold only a single value at a time. So we can't say something like 10, 20, 30, 50. Okay, so this is not allowed. But yes, Java does provide us this type of functionality, and it is in the form of an array. So in very simple terms, I can say an array is a special variable which can hold multiple values of the same data type. I'll repeat it again. An array is a special variable which can hold multiple values of the same data type. Okay, now in Java, an array is also an object. So don't worry about the term object right now because I've covered that in my object-oriented section. So just remember this point. In Java, an array is also an object. Okay. Now I'll show you how an array looks inside the memory. So this is how an array looks inside the memory. So as you can see, these are contiguous memory locations, and these locations are also indexed. And one more important point regarding arrays, no matter what type of array it is, the indexing of an array will always start at 0. So if we have an array of size 10, then the indexing will start from 0 to 9. Okay. Now this array is given a name ARR, and by looking at the values you can see and you can guess that this is an array of type integer. So that's it from here. Now I'll show you how to create an array in Java, and I'll be creating an integer array which will be of size 5. So the syntax for doing that is something like this: int ARR, which is the name of the array, followed by square brackets, equal to new int, again square brackets, and inside the second square bracket I'll specify the size. So this is the proper syntax of creating an array in Java. Now similarly, I can create an array of any type whichever I want. Let's say I'll create an array of characters, char c equal to new char, and again I'll specify the size. Okay, that's it. So as you can see, the syntax is almost similar. The only thing which is changing is the data type. So in the similar fashion, you can create an array of any type, and it need not necessarily be a primitive type. It can be an object type or reference type as well. So the syntax will remain the same. The only thing which will change is the data type. So this is the way you create an array in Java. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll explain you how to initialize an array in Java. Now in the previous tutorial we've seen how to create an array. So first I'll just create a simple integer array of size 5, and for doing that I'll have to write int a, which is the name of the array, equal to new int, and here I'll specify the size of the array. Okay, so I've just created a simple integer array of size 5. Now one way of initializing an array is by assigning values to the individual indexes of that array. Now in the previous tutorial we've seen that an array indexing always starts at 0. So no matter what type of array it is, the indexing will always start at 0. And while adding elements to an array, the first element will go at index 0. Then the second element will go at index 1, and so on. Okay. Now for assigning values at individual indexes, I'll have to write something like this: a of 0 is equal to 10. Now what this means is I'm trying to load value 10 at index 0 of array A. So I'm assigning value 10 at index 0 of array A. So I'll do this similarly for the other indices as well. So a of 1 is equal to 20, a of 2 is equal to 77, a of 3 is equal to 9, and finally a of 4 is equal to 5. Okay, so I've initialized this array by assigning values to its individual indexes. So this is one way of initializing an array. So we create an array object first, and then we initialize it in this manner. So this is one way. Now there is another way of initializing an array which is quite simple as compared to this one. So I'll just remove this now. Yes. And the second way states that okay, I'll have to just create an array like this, and then here comes the curly braces, and inside these curly braces I directly specify the values. Okay, so let's say 20, 30, 10, 40, 9. So whatever we did in the previous method, all that is happening in this one statement. So we are declaring an array, we are creating an object of the array, and we are initializing that object with these values. And here we don't even have to specify the size of the array. So you can see that we have not mentioned the size. So what it will do is, depending on the number of elements which we add, it will create the size of the array. So here, since I've added 5 elements, the size of the array will be 5. Okay, so these are the methods in which you can initialize an array in Java. So that's it for now. See you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll be teaching you classes and objects. So let's begin. Now let us consider a real world scenario. For example, before constructing any building or any apartment, we first draw a diagram of it on paper, right? So this diagram will probably have the building's dimensions, then how many rooms it will have, then how the rooms will be internally structured, and things like that. Okay, so based on this diagram, the actual building will be constructed. Okay, now in object-oriented terminology, the diagram is analogous to a class, and the actual building which is constructed, it is analogous to a object. Okay, so in object-oriented programming, the diagram is the class and the actual building is the object. Now we can say that a class is like a blueprint of an object, right? So it is just a description, and based on the description provided in the class, the object will be constructed in memory. Okay, now let us consider some real world entities. For example, a car, a bike, probably cat, dog, then buildings, anything. So these real world entities can be represented in the form of objects in object oriented programming. Okay, now let us consider one such real world entity, for example a dog. Now a dog will have some data associated with it, right? For example, a dog will have some breed. Okay, then a dog will have some color. Okay, it may have some name. So this is the data which is associated with the dog. Then apart from this, a dog will exhibit some kind of behavior. Now what is a behavior? For example, a dog can bark, it can walk, it can run, right? So this is the behavior of a dog. Now in object-oriented programming, when we represent this dog as an object, in that case the data will be represented in the form of variables, and behavior will be represented in the form of methods. Okay, so I'll explain this with an example. Again, I'll create a dog class first, and then we'll create an object. Okay, so let us create a dog class. So for creating a class, we have a keyword class, which is then followed by the class name, and it is then followed by the class body. Now inside the class body, I'll just declare 2 string variables. Let's say string breed, because every dog has some breed, and string color. Okay, and I've declared it as string because these values are going to be strings. Okay, now this is the data part. Now I'm going to add some behavior, and as I said, behavior is represented in the form of methods. So I'll add a few methods over here. Let's say void bark, okay, and void walk. Okay, and I'll add some statements inside this. So I'll print something on screen. Let's say barks, and over here walks. Okay, so our class is ready. So this is just a description. Okay, now we'll create the actual object, and for creating an object, we just have to say dog, then the reference name is equal to new dog. Okay, so guys, this is the syntax of creating an object, right? And again, in this case, in my previous tutorials, I've mentioned that there are 2 types of data. One is the primitive type and the other one is the reference type. And in this case, this is the reference type. Okay, so this will be pointing to an object which is created in memory. Okay, so when we say new dog, an object will be created in memory, and this reference will be pointing to that object. Okay, so it will basically have the memory address of that object, right? That's it. Now we have created our class, we have created our object. Now what I will do is I will invoke these methods on this object. And how do I do it? For invoking methods, I just have to say obj1, that is the name of the reference or the name of the object, dot bark. Okay, so this is the way we invoke any method of an object. So let's run this, and yes, it prints barks. Now similarly, I'll invoke the other method, obj1 dot walk. Okay, and let's run this. Yes. Okay, so as you can see, it prints walks. So guys, this is the way we create a class, then we create an object of that class, and we invoke methods on that object. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'll be teaching you variable scopes. Now, what is the scope of a variable? In simple terms, I can say that the scope is the lifetime of a variable. Okay, now let us consider this example which we saw in the previous tutorial. Now, in this case, I've created an object dog in this main method. Okay, now if we create any variable or any object inside any method, then that variable or object will be visible only within that method. Okay, so the scope of that variable or object will be only within the method. So if we try to do anything like this, obj1 dot, okay, so it won't find it because this obj1 is not visible outside this method. It is visible only inside the method. Okay, so this is one type of scope. Now, if we create any for loop or any other looping statements inside the method, let's say for int I equal to 0, I less than 5 or 6, okay, and I plus plus. So I've created a for loop inside this main method. Now inside this for loop, if I declare any variable int z is equal to 10, then the scope of this variable will be only within this for loop. Okay, so if I try to access z outside, then I won't find it. Okay, so this is another type of scope. Now consider these two variables. Now in this case, these variables are at the class level. Okay, so the scope of these variables is at the class level. So I can access these variables inside any of my methods over here, right? So I can say anything like this, sysout, okay, then I can type in breed, and it will find that variable because they are declared at the class level. So this is another type of scope. So these are the main types of scopes which you will be using in your projects frequently. So that's it for now, and thank you for watching. See you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'll be teaching you constructors. Now, let us consider the same example which we saw in the previous tutorial. Okay, so in this case, look at here. Okay, here I haven't initialized any values, right? So these variables are not assigned any values. Okay, so I haven't initialized them, right? But I have created an object of dog. Now let's just try to print the values of breed and color and see what we get, because I haven't initialized them, right? So I'm just curious what values I will get after running them. Okay, let's say breed sysout obj1 dot color. Now I'll just run this program, and for time being I'll just comment these statements. Let's run it, and as you can see, we got null as the answer. Now what is this null? Okay, because I haven't initialized these variables with any values, so how do we get a null over here? Now this null is the default value of string. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if we don't assign any values, or if we don't initialize the variables with any values, then when the object is created, that time those variables will be initialized with the default values. Okay, now the default values will be different for different data types. Let's say, for example, if it is an int, then the default value will be 0. If it is a float, again, float is a data type which holds decimal numbers. Okay. If it is a float, then the default value will be 0.0. If it is a boolean, then the default value will be false. Okay, so these are the default values for different data types, right? So the point is, if we don't assign any values, or if we don't initialize the variables of any class, then when the object is created, those variables will be initialized with the default values. Okay. Now, what if I don't want the default values? What if I want to initialize them with my own values? Okay. So one way of doing that is I can probably write or initialize them over here itself, right? So I can say Labrador, that is just some breed which I found out, and color. Okay. So this is one way of initializing the variables of an object. Okay. So in this case, what will happen is every time I create a dog object, that object will be initialized with these values. Okay. So if I create 100 of dog objects, then all the 100 dog objects will have breed as Labrador and color as white, which is again not a good way of initializing, because I may not want all the dogs to be of the same breed and color, right? Sometimes I may want a different dog objects with different breed and color. So how do I do this? Because in this case, whichever object I create, that will be initialized with these values only, right? Now, this is where the constructor comes into picture. Okay, so I'll just remove this for now. Yeah. Now, what is a constructor? The main purpose of a constructor is initializing objects. Okay, so how do we write a constructor? Now, again, a constructor, we can consider it as a special method, right? And the syntax for writing it is as follows. First of all, a constructor does not have a return type, right? And the name of the constructor is the same name as that of the class. So in this case, the name of the class is dog. So the name of my constructor will also be dog. And then comes the round brackets and then the body. Okay, now here we can pass some parameters. Let's say string B, which will represent the breed, and then another string C, which will represent the color. And inside this, I can initialize the values, these variables, with these variables. Okay, so let's say breed is equal to B and color is equal to C. Okay, so this is the way we create any constructor. Okay, so it has the same name as that of the class, and it does not have a return type, right? Now, I'll just comment this for a while. Okay. Okay, so our constructor is ready. Now, how do we create an object of this class? Now, for doing that, I just have to say dog obj2 is equal to new dog. And while creating the object itself, I can pass the values, right? So let's say I'm passing the values as Labrador. Okay. And the second value will be the color. Okay. So I've created a dog object and I've initialized the variables with these values. And how does this happen? And that happens because of this constructor, right? So I have a constructor with two parameters, and that is why I can pass two parameters over here, right? So similarly, I'll create another dog object, dog obj3 is equal to new dog. And again, I can pass some value over here. Let's say German Shepherd. Okay. And again, the color will be brown, anything. Okay, so this is the way we initialize an object. So here you can see I have initialized different objects with different values, and that is the benefit of a constructor. Now, again, one point you have to keep in mind: if I try to write, if I try to create an object with the with empty parentheses now, it will show error. And why is that? Because we don't have any constructor with empty parentheses. And earlier it was allowing because the compiler that time created a default constructor for us, right? So when we don't create any constructor, the compiler creates a default constructor for us, right? But the moment we create even one constructor, the compiler won't create any constructor, right? So in this case, it is showing error because the compiler hasn't created the default constructor for us. And that is because we have created our own constructor. So for making this work, we'll have to again create a constructor over here with empty parenthesis, right? So that is the way it works. So again, as a concluding point, I would say the main purpose of a constructor is to initialize objects. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'll be teaching you inheritance. So let's begin. Now, consider this class which I've created. So I've created a class C1 which is having two integer variables, and I've assigned some values to it. And also it is having two methods m1 and m2. Okay. Now in the main method, I've created an object of class C1 and I'm just printing the variables, and also I'm invoking the methods. So let's just run this program and see what we get the output. And yes, as you can see, we get the output as expected because the value of A is 10, the value of B is 20, and also the methods are executed properly. Okay, so this is done. Now, what if I want to create another class which will have all the contents or all the members and methods of C1, and apart from that, it will have something of its own, right? So I want to create a class, let's say class C2, and this class should have all the member variables and all the methods of C1, and apart from that, it should have some member variables and methods of its own. So how do I do that? I'll probably copy this entire stuff and paste it over here, and then I'll add some other variables which will be of C2. Okay, so let's say C is equal to 30 and int D is equal to 40. Okay, and I'll also create two more methods. Okay, M3 and M4. Okay, and internally I will write of C2 and C2. Okay, so I've created two more methods and two more variables, right? So this is the way I would normally do it, right? So I wanted all the contents of C1, and I want to add some extra part which will be of C2. Okay, so in this C2 class, I'm having all the contents of C1 as well as some extra things of C2, right? Now this looks like a bad programming practice because we're just copy pasting some things, right? And for solving this issue, Java has provided us the concept of inheritance. So what inheritance does is it allows new classes to be derived from existing classes, right? So we don't have to do all this. So what we have to do is we just have to write the new things which we want to add, okay, and remove the existing things. Okay, so how do we get these things into our class C2 then? Because these are two different classes, right? So yes, Java has a facility for it, and it is inheritance. And how do we inherit from a class? So we have a keyword over here which is called extends, and then we just specify the class from which we want to inherit. Okay, so by doing this, what will happen is this class C2 will get all the member variables and methods of class C1, and apart from that, it will have something of its own, right? So at the end, we can say that this class C2 is having all the four variables A, B, C, and D, and all the four methods M1, M2, M3, and M4. So let's just run this program to check if we are right. So I'll create an object obj2 of C2, new C2. Okay, and I'll just do the same things again. Okay, I'll try to display all the values of the variables. So A, B, C, and D, and also I'll invoke the methods obj2.m1. Okay, and similarly M2, M3, and M4. Okay, so let's run this and see if we get the correct output. Okay, yeah, and yes, the object should be obj2. Yes, now it should work. So let's run this, and yes, as you can see, we got the correct output. So this object of C2 is having all the 4 variables and it is having all the 4 methods. Okay, so this is the output: 10, 20, 30, 40, M1 of C1, M2 of C1, M3 of C2, and M4 of C2. So that is the benefit of inheritance. And I would like to conclude by saying one statement. The main purpose of inheritance is code reusability. Okay, so as you can see here, we have just reused some existing code into our new code, right? So that is the benefit of inheritance. So thank you for watching. See you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'll give you an overview of a concept called as package. Now, what is a package? Now, in simple terms, I can say that a package is some sort of facility which allows us to group related classes together. Okay. For example, if I have multiple classes which have something related to network. Okay. So they are performing some network activity. Okay. So I can place these classes into one package called as net, right? Similarly, if I have some classes which have some IO related operations or input output related operations, right? So I can place all these classes into a package called as IO. So it is basically what a package does is it groups related classes in one place. Okay. Now, a package mainly contains classes and other packages, right? So mainly it contains classes only, but we can also create other packages inside a package. Okay, right. Now, every Java class which we create, it will be a part of some package. And if we don't specify any package for that class, then it will be a part of a default package. And as you can see in all my programs so far, I haven't specified any packages for my classes, right? And as a result, all my classes are part of the default package. Okay. Now it is highly recommended that you don't use default package for your classes because for now, for simple programs, it is fine. But when you do big programs or big projects, then it is always recommended to keep your classes in any named package and not in the default package. Okay. Now, one more point regarding packages. Like for example, in a class, we can't have 2 variables of the same name or 2 methods of the same name, right? Similarly, inside a package, we can't have 2 classes of the same name. Okay. So that's it from my side over here. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome to my Java tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'll be teaching you access modifiers. Now, in the previous tutorial, we saw a concept called as package. Now, what is a package? A package is basically used to group related classes together. Okay. So at a high level, we can say that our Java application is a collection of packages, right? So as you can see, this is my Java application and there are multiple packages inside. And you can also create new packages by right clicking on the project, say new package, okay, and give some name to it, right? So a Java application is a collection of packages and a package in turn is a collection of classes, right? So that's it. Now let's begin with the access modifiers. Now, what is an access modifier? An access modifier is used to control the visibility of different components of our program. Now, there are 2 levels of access modifiers. One is at the class level and the other one is at the member level. Now, I'll just start off with the class level access modifiers. Okay. Now, at the class level, we have only one access modifier, which is called public, right? Now, what this means is when I declare any class as public, it means that this class will be visible in the entire Java application. That is, it will be visible in the same class as well as in, not in the same class, it will be visible in the same package as well as in other packages of the same Java application, right? So remember one thing, when we declare any class as public, that class will be visible in the same package as well as in the other packages of the same Java application. So it will be visible in the entire Java application. Now, when I say visible, what does it mean? it means that I can create an object of that class, right? So if I can create an object of the class properly, that means that class is visible. Okay, so that's it. Now, if I don't declare anything or if I don't specify any access modifier for a class, which means it means that it is a default access modifier, and the default means that this class will be visible only in the same package or in the current package, right? So this class A1 will be visible only in the same package and not in the other packages, right? So yeah, that's it. Now I'll just start off with the variable level or member level access modifiers. Okay, now let's start. If I declare this variable as public, okay, then this variable A will be accessible by this object anywhere in the Java application. So wherever I create this object A1, I can directly access this variable A. For example, over here, if I create an object of A1, then I can directly access this variable A by its name, right? So this is allowed. And if I don't specify this, then the default is the package. Okay, so default is package visibility. That means this variable A will be visible only in the same package or in the current package. And since both these classes are in the same package, A is visible over here, right? So this is default access modifier. Again, default means we don't have to write default keyword over here. It's just when you don't specify anything, it becomes a default, right? Now there is one more access modifier over here, which is called private. Now when I say private, whatever I declare as private, it means that that particular member will be visible only in the same class and not even in the same package. Okay, so when I declare anything as private, it will be visible only in the same class, right? So, and as a result, since this A is private, I am not able to access this A over here, right? So that is done. Now similar things are applicable for methods as well, right? So whatever I said for these variables, the same thing is applicable for methods. For example, if I declare this method as private, then I won't be able to call this method over here, right? So it won't find M1. And again, if I declare it as public, it will find it. And also if I don't specify anything, it will find it because the default visibility is the package, right? So that's it. And yes, there is one more important access modifier, which is called protected. And for that, I'll have to create another class over here. A2 extends A1. Okay, so what I've done is the syntax. This means I'm inheriting from another class, right? So I have created a class A2 which extends class A1, that is, it inherits from class A1. Now if I declare any variable over here as protected, then it means that this variable A will be visible in the same package, right? And also in its child class. Okay, so this variable can be accessed in the same package and also in its child class, right? So that is the meaning of protected. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. If you like my videos, do subscribe to my YouTube channel for getting all latest updates.